Good morning. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your nonprofit origin story?
Good morning. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for asking me. My name is Kerris Chinery, and I am the executive director of an organization called Evermore Gather Grow Lead in Winnipeg, Manitoba. And I've been working in the nonprofit charitable sector for 20 some odd years. I love the Hive, and I'm just super excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
We've chatted a few times, and every time your name pops up on a Hive chat afterwards, I get feedback from people going, "Oh, she's amazing," and everything. So I had to find out for myself, and very excited that you agreed to do this with us. And you've got a long history of working in nonprofit, but even a long history of working in one nonprofit, which is not always that common anymore.
Yeah, so my entire working history is with Evermore, and our organization's been around since 1977. And we're a very small nonprofit in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and we do recreational opportunities with children and families in the West Central area of Winnipeg. And when I started, the organization was called West Central Community Program, and I was a 21-year-old who grew up in a more affluent part of Winnipeg, and didn't really have very much experience, didn't know what the nonprofit sector was,
Yeah.
and didn't have any real experience of other areas of the city. I worked as the program manager for roughly about 15 or so years. I was very privileged to actually succeed the founder of the organization after 38 years. And now I've been the executive director for the past 8 or so.
I love that, and indicates not only that it must be a great mission, but also that the work is really fulfilling. Because I think the one time you and I chatted, it was like, there's such crazy turnover in the sector. Finding good workplace culture is really critical in this space.
What's so amazing about our organization is, like, you speak of turnover, but like we have a very small full-time staff team. There's only 3 of us. And the associate director of the organization has been with the organization as long as I have, just in different capacities. So when I started working, she was a teenage volunteer in our junior volunteer program. And now she's worked her way through the organization by, being a volunteer, a part-time staff, a summer staff, and she was the program facilitator, full-time program facilitator, and then wound up being the associate director. So there's lots of history there. Our program manager was a participant in grade 5 when I started in our
Wild.
organization, and say kind of the same thing with him. He was a child in our programming and became a teenage volunteer, and worked part-time, then summer full-time, and he's now the program manager. We all have a tremendous amount of experience with the organization, and 2 of the 3 full-time staff grew up in the community that we serve. So there's a tremendous connection to our values and mission. Absolutely.
Very cool. I love that. Okay, so challenges of the work, which I know is something that you and I really bonded over when we had a big chat one day. But in your history in this sector, what are you seeing as some of the biggest challenges that are facing nonprofit professionals?
I mean, I don't know that much tops COVID.
Yeah.
But yeah, but you know what? Like, and I mean, honestly, like a lot of the challenges that are happening now are because of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, really, I think as a whole, the sector itself, and I'm sure this is across Canada as well, has been neglected, right? And
Yeah.
we're now, instead of working on prevention, where we should have been for so many years, we're now working reactively to try and deal with not only the fallout of the pandemic, but all of the needs and things that we should have been working to prevent a long time ago. I've had more rejections on funding this past year than I think I've had in my entire career. You're trying to do more and more with less in a time where doing more with less is not acceptable anymore. I worry. I stay awake every night to worrying about how I'm going to pay my staff and how we're going to continue to stay open, especially being a small nonprofit organization in this current climate. There's so much need and just not enough funding.
Yeah. I think the need has never, and I think that's part of the underlying stress I'm seeing when I talk to anybody. The need feels like it's never been higher, but the supports for nonprofits feel like they've never been lower, right? Like there's a mismatch happening of what, the gaps nonprofits truly are filling that were handled by government. 20, 30 years,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, yeah. The fallback of COVID, and,
Yeah.
and from staffing to funding to the needs of the community, like, even the children in our programs, their needs have changed, their behaviors have changed, their hunger has changed. The families we work with, there's more and more families needing our programming, more and more families, who or don't have a job anymore, or single parent families. It's just it's so there's so many challenges.
Yeah.
It's such a tough time for everybody in the charitable sector, and I just, every day I'm amazed at the resilience of the people that work in the sector and that I get to meet.
Yeah. I think that's in many ways why I started the Nonprofit Hive, because I was just like, these are like the best people. Every day you meet incredible people with incredible stories of why they do this work. And they're a critical part of the success of nonprofit organizations. We don't always look at it that way. I like the reframe back on the practitioners, because I think too often they take a back seat when really there's a lot of power in their stories, in their why, um, that can inspire donors and communities.
Absolutely. And I mean, and you know what? At the end of the day, everything that we do is about meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah.
I've been so privileged over the years to develop all of these meaningful relationships in so many different capacities, from peers and other organizations to the children that we serve. I used to tease the founder quite a bit because he had been with the organization for 38 years. And so it was starting where he would be running into not only kids and then and parents of kids that were in our program, and then it became grandparents as
Yeah.
well that attended our program. And it's all starting to happen to me now, right? Where like we have served entire families. It allows you to be part of something so special. I don't know even that I would be aware of how generous the community in Winnipeg is if I didn't work in this sector.
I think people in this sector somehow are more optimistic than people who don't know about nonprofit work or what it looks like, even though there's all of these challenges. People who work in nonprofit also see, I think, they see some of the hardest parts of what society and humanity can face, but they also see the people and know the people who are like, look at this difference. Like something's happening here. And so I think they see some of the magic as well, which so much of society misses out on, that magic of the behind the scenes. That's hard work. I love that piece so much. Favorite part of the work, because we kind of started with challenges, but like, what do you love the most? And this feels like a natural
Oh
transition.
gosh. I think the connections with the children over the years, and when I started here, I thought to myself, like, if I could make the difference in the life of one child, then my job here would be done. Just
Yeah.
one. And I think that I've been able to do that, and I think that I've been able to do that for thousands of children. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but I'm
No,
saying
I love it.
myself within the organization, okay?
No, but I think it's
um,
really important. You can own that. I do think that some ownership is important. Like, this is work that without you participating in it might not have happened.
what keeps me here is I absolutely love working for a small charitable organization. I love it. If we want to be innovative and we want to try something, it's a much easier process than if we were part of a national organization. We can have that creativity. The staff team can have that creativity to try things, throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And that gives a sense of freedom, and you're really only limited by your ideas. I'm somebody who, because of this work, has become extremely comfortable with change, because that's all we do. And change is a very, very scary thing for people. Um, and to be comfortable with that is one of the skills that you develop in the nonprofit sector.
Absolutely.
And like one of my most prideful, I think, accomplishments is, taking the organization through complete rebrand. Right.
That's
I mean, to be able to really, dive in and explore who we're serving and the community we're serving, and to have our new identity and our new name reflect that, and then to watch the children really connect with that, and it gives them a place where they feel this tremendous sense of belonging. It's kind of a very interesting story about how the rebrand came about. When the founder retired, the organization had a very long name. So the children would always call the program Mark's Club
Mark.
because
Okay.
Mark was the founder, right?
Yeah.
It was always Kerris of Mark's Club, Mark of Mark's Club, Jenny of Mark's Club, right?
Yeah.
And so when Mark retired, everybody was going, what are you going to call it now? And the program is not a person; it's a
Yeah.
team. It's a team of caring individuals who all work together, and we really wanted a name that really the name was able to stick and it didn't become the identity of a person or persons, right? And the children now refer to it as, are you going to Evermore after school program today? To see that stick and to see that the children, we made t-shirts and just their identity and to feel part of something, it's just that is one of the most rewarding, one of the most, if I had to pick, one of the
Yeah.
most rewarding things I've been part of. Mhm.
Creating spaces for belonging is underrated, right? I think as a society, we've kind of broken up too far apart, but places of belonging are really, really important, particularly places of belonging around a challenge. You have to at least have belonging first in order to go, I feel really great here. Now I'm going to push the boundaries and move to another space where I might belong too. I think it makes us all a little braver when we know we have the backing of a community.
We always refer to ourselves as a stable and trusted presence, right? I mean, we've been in the community for a long time. The staff have longevity, and it's really important to us to provide, a safe place where the children feel that they belong, that in some respects that they can come and they have consistency. They know who's going to be there. They know what's going to happen. In a world where sometimes these children experience a lot of chaos, to be able to come to a place where they know what to expect and they know who's going to be there for them is extremely valuable. That's where I go back to the whole piece of meaningful relationships. Like at the end of the day, it all boils down to that. My biggest pet peeve around the view of staff and staffing and staff compensation in the nonprofit sector, and the fact that, I can get tons of funding for basketballs, and what am I supposed to do with them? I can just throw them into a gym and be like, okay, kids, play amongst yourselves,
Yeah.
right? Yay. Right. But I mean, who runs these programs? Who makes the magic happen?
Who makes the magic happen?
Our team.
Yeah.
Evermore staff team is where the magic happens. And to not be able to find funding to pay these staff a living wage, a wage where, they don't have to worry so that they can put their energy into the people that need us,
Yeah.
and it's really frustrating.
In terms of peer support in the nonprofit sector, you're in a unique position where you've held multiple positions at one nonprofit, but as an executive director in the Canadian space, small nonprofit, how does peer support factor into your nonprofit work?
You know what? I've been so privileged to be able to work with so many different peers and executive directors that I can able to just pick up the phone. I've been mentored by some amazing individuals who have been willing to, give some of their time. And I think that I'm starting to be able to be in that place where I can begin to pay that back.
Yeah.
And so some of the directors and that are just starting out in the sector, to be able to offer that support to them as well and give back. We had a great group of directors who kind of supported each other through COVID. And it was just the most valuable thing, just kind of like picking up the phone and like, hey, what are you doing today? What decision are you making today? How many staff are you letting go today? There is competition now with funding being the way it is. Organizations are competing with each other more than they ever were for funding dollars and stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever come across somebody who wasn't willing to help,
Yeah.
and like I said, that goes back to meaningful relationships, right?
Exactly. I was going to
Like,
say the title of this chat is going to be Meaningful Relationships with Kerris Chinery. So it'll be great. No, it's fantastic. And I totally agree that we all need people to talk to. And I think sometimes executive directors at nonprofits are in a unique position where they do have someone above them. They have a board, right? Which is not
mhm.
always the case in a for-profit. Things often stop at the CEO especially in a smaller business. You don't have a board sitting above you in a smaller business. So even nonprofits, when they're a one person nonprofit, still have this board scenario. So it's kind of unique. And like you noted, you sometimes need other people who are in a similar position to you, but just outside the bubble enough to be able to have like, how are you doing this? How is this working? Like, do you have any
Mhm.
insights on this challenge? Because it can be hard if you're leading a small team to open up, I'm sure, to absolutely everything that's a challenge, because that's not like they have their own challenges. They have their own pieces that they have to worry
Absolutely.
about, right?
And they're wearing 15 hats themselves, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a small team. You
Yeah.
know, like that, they're not just doing their job. They're doing their job of how many people, just like I
Yeah.
am, right?
Yeah.
Programmer, accountant, executive director, fundraiser. Like when you're a small team, you're doing it all. It's not only talking about operations, but you're speaking with other executive directors and being like, how do you relate to your board and how does that work? And
Yeah.
um, so it's just really nice to be able to have those people who you can offer that support to and who you can get that support from.
Yeah, for sure. And you've been a Hive member since, I believe, last fall. You were one of the people who really early on jumped in, which is great. So, what have you gotten out of being a Hive member since you started?
You know what? The Hive is amazing. The people that you meet are amazing. I mean, it's one thing to talk to people who are kind of in your close proximity, but
Yeah.
like to be able to speak to people who live in different countries and on different
Yeah.
continents. And sometimes when you think what you're dealing with is difficult, to hear, some of the other situations of other organizations in other parts of the world, like it's amazing. And to be able to learn from that and to share. And,
Yeah.
I know I had a really great conversation at one time with somebody who worked in the nonprofit sector with children and youth in the US. It was an amazing conversation that could have gone on forever to talk about, what the experiences are in working with the youth in the US versus Canada, and what are the similarities and what's different, right? I find it so refreshing. Um, like how even having met you,
Yeah.
is
Right.
amazing. Like the
Yeah.
conversations are amazing. So I absolutely see the value in it. There have been people who I've chatted with who, we haven't stopped there and still continue to have some sort of relationship after the fact if there's a way that we can work together. So I think it's just this really amazing way to broaden your horizons and experiencing something quite unique, very unique.
Awesome. I love that. And yeah, meeting people from different countries. I mean, I love when I get in conversations with other Canadians, like you have that, like there's some natural backstory there beyond the nonprofit space being from the same country. But it's those conversations sometimes with people in different parts of the world that really spark something for me to go, oh my goodness, either I know something that I can share about that's just common here in Canada that is useful to them, or vice versa, where they'll say something culturally and I'm like, why aren't we doing it like that here? What's going on? And what is there a reason why we couldn't? And often there isn't. It's just you get kind of stuck in your ways of how things move, right? So I think it's refreshing to get the different perspectives from everywhere.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, this is great. So, how can people get in touch with you? How can they go and learn more about Evermore, the nonprofit you lead?
Well, they can follow us on social media, or evermoreggl.com is our website.
Okay.
Um, they can always look me up on LinkedIn and connect with me there. I'm always open to connections through LinkedIn. Send me an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing. I love this. You're fantastic, and I'm very thankful that this crazy, wild nonprofit hive idea brought us together. So
Well, and you're pretty amazing yourself. Thank you for coming up with this idea.
thank you. Thank you. You're so awesome. Thanks. Bye, Karis.
Thank you. Bye.